Thank you very much, Dr. Hakimian, for your kind introduction. First of all, let me say how delighted I am to be in this very distinguished gathering. I also would like to thank Professor Pesaran for his kind invitation for me to come and get acquainted with you and with your professional association and have some time to share with you my thoughts on gas market developments as well as a bit about Iran. What I intend to share with you is divided into two parts. One is an overview of the challenges that is facing now gas market dynamics. Then I would have a bit of analysis of demand and supply of gas. And of course, in the second part, I also would touch briefly on the potential of Iran on the gas, on trade and international trade on gas. So, but let me first start with our organization, Gas Exporting Countries Forum. I'm sure that you have heard of it and you are quite knowledgeable about it, but it's good to know that this international governmental organization was established in 2001 in Tehran, but of course it turned to be a full-fledged international organization in 2008 when it was decided to have a secretariat in Doha. So the general secretariat of this organization is in Doha, and this organization is comprised of 18 members and observers. It's a small cosmopolitan organization, as a matter of fact, because starting from the Latin America, we have 4 members: Bolivia, Trinidad Tobago, Venezuela, and Peru. Then we go to Africa, we have Equatorial Guinea and Nigeria, North Africa, Algeria, Libya, and Egypt. In Europe, it's Norway and Netherlands. Then in Eurasia, we have Russia, Kazakhstan, and then in the Persian Gulf, we have Iran, Iraq, and Oman, UAE, and Qatar. These are 18 members. Of course, when I joined GECF, we were 17, and we were lucky to invite one additional member. Now we are 18, and we have 2 more in the pipeline. Maybe next year we would have 20 members. So this by itself reflects the importance of gas in today's energy market. The GECF, of course, is responsible for 67% of the world-proven gas reserves of the world. I mean, if you want to compare it with OPEC, OPEC has just 33% of the proven reserves of oil, as opposed to this one, 67%. Also is responsible for 65% of the trade of gas, which is also, if you want to compare it with OPEC, OPEC is now 30% of the oil market. So this is 65%. So in other words, GECF is a very large organization, but unlike OPEC, it is not for any kind of cartelization activity in this organization. So I stop about GECF. Then let's go into, first of all, a very brief overview of what is changing now in the gas market. The first thing that I have to say is that unlike oil, gas does not have a single global market. This is why we always talk about gas. When we talk, we say gas markets. We don't say global gas market, because it is divided into different geographical regions, and each of them would have its own characteristics and pricings and dynamics. So it's quite different from from oil. So this is why when we are talking about the dynamics of the gas markets, it seems that now it is changing globally, and a new dynamics is coming on the stream. So I would like to start with the shale gas development, which is something that is changing the dynamics. Shale gas has turned the United States of America from a net importer to a net exporter. Actually, United States is set to start its exports late 2016 or early 2017. The first LNG carrier would go from United States to China and to Japan. So this would make United States as one of the exporters of energy. Of course, it has its own impacts on the United States economic relationship to the rest of the world. But a part of that, it has lots of effect on the gas markets because it has changed the American market from one of the very expensive ones to a very cheap one, competing with the other parts of the world. Actually, in 2007, at this time, the price of gas in the United States was something around $45 per million BTU, and now it is $2.6 per million BTU. So it's a huge change that has taken place. And this would, of course, makes many other countries and exporters and importers to think about using this source of export. So, and the other impact that has the shale gas is that the share of gas or the use of gas in a country which was dominant by oil and coal is changing this country into a country where they are using clean fuel rather than a dirty one. And this has, in my opinion, this has had an instrumental impact on the United States policy toward the Kyoto Protocol and the climate change. We know that the United States rejected the Kyoto Protocol before, and they were not very accommodative in coming up with the other countries in the reduction of the CO2 emission. But now the United States is one of the quite front runners in the climate change discussion, and I think that the revolution of shale gas in the United States is one of the major factors. Of course, the question is that whether shale gas is going to be in the United States is going to be replicated in other countries or not, which this is quite uncertainty because we don't know whether this could happen in other places because there are lots of talks about it, but still, except for China, for a very negligible amount of shale gas production, the rest of the world has not yet been able to dig in for the shale gas because of many things. I mean, one of them is the technology. So apart from this shale gas, let me now go to other factors, which is Japan. Japan is the largest LNG importer of the world. And its demand on gas and LNG is really determining the whole gas markets, especially at that part of the world. So as we all know, Japan was using nuclear fuel as one of the actually dominant fuels of Japan, which was something around 60% of the Japan energy mix was nuclear at that time. But on 54 nuclear power plants after Fukushima was shut down. And of course, in the past few years, they went through major overhaul, or what they call it, inspection. And now it is, and of course, by that, Japan started to import lots of gas and LNG, and that impacted the market, and the market really, the prices went up as far as $20 per million BTU from something which was $6 per million BTU at that time. Now it has started to be back. Actually, Japan has announced that they are going to restart their nuclear power plants, and they have the plan to start the first two nuclear power plants in this year, in 2015. I was told that this PowerPoint may may shut down, but after some few minutes it will come up. But I have enough in my mind to let you know, and don't worry about that. So Japan's post-Fukushima policy now is to go back to the nuclear power plants and use nuclear power plant as the fuel of the power generations of Japan. So this means that the demand of Japan would be coming down. It would be affecting the whole demand of that region, which is the largest region of the world in terms of the gas. So this is the second also factor that is impacting the dynamics of the gas markets. But the third one is the fall in the oil prices. Actually, gas does not have an independent price. The price of gas is dependent on the oil. So when the oil price falls with a lag of something around 2.5 months, depending on the geographical regions, the oil prices, or the gas prices also would come down. And of course, the gas prices in all different regions now is coming down and have already come down. In terms of pricing, in gas, we have four distinct markets. One is the US market, which is called Henry Hub, which is one of the hubs of the trading hub of US is called Henry Hub. Henry Hub price is 2.6 as opposed to what it used to be, $7 per million BTU. So that is one market. The second market is the South Europe and North Europe. I mean, these two are the two Europes. Of course, when we talk about North Europe, we mean NBP. I mean, the new point here in UK also is another hub, which is now $6.5 and $7.5 per million BTU. And then we go to, as opposed to what it used to be before, $14 per million BTU and $12. Then we come to the Far East. In the Far East, the conventional price, the traditional price, used to be something around $18 to $20 in the past year before the fall of the oil price, and now it is around $9.5. So in terms of pricing, although we have four different regions, but we see that there is some sort of convergence of the prices. I mean, we used to have $5, $6 in US and $20 in Far East Asia. Now we have $2.5 and $9.5. So we see that the prices are coming down. And also we see that LNG is increasing, and LNG, as opposed to the pipeline, has more flexibility in terms of the market dynamics, because when it is a pipeline connecting two countries with each other, of course, I would say that we don't have any market forces impacting the trade, because you have an exclusive pipeline coming from the supplier and you have an exclusive buyer. So there is no market forces over there. There is no competition over there. So, but in LNG, there is more flexibility, because it's the LNG is on the ship and it is just moving from one point to the other point. So the rising of LNG, Japan, and shale gas, and of course, I would like also to briefly mention climate change. You know, climate change discussion in the world was not getting somewhere in the past years. But just it was last year in 2014 when two giant countries, two polluting countries actually, the United States of America and China, who are the most polluting countries in the world, they accepted to join the climate change discussion and contribute to the move. And once they did that, of course, now there is much hope that in the next, what we call it, COP 21 in Paris in December, this December in 2015, there would be some finalization of new agreement on the Kyoto Protocol, which is very much promising for the future. And if these climate change commitments, which now the countries are starting to commit themselves for the reduction of the CO2 emission, if that would really geared up and then it would be implemented, then we would have lots of change in terms of gas, because gas is the cleanest fossil fuel and it has the least amount of CO2 emission. And so if the countries would like to commit themselves into what they have already promised and keep their word, they have to switch to gas. So this is why we in our organization, we are very much in favor of the successful negotiation of the Kyoto Protocol next stage. And last but not the least is actually the energy policies, which is also, we see that energy policies is one of the uncertainties of the energy market, especially gas market, because we don't know which direction some countries are going through, the direction of more thinking about their financial problems, or they would like to commit to their to the commitments and words on the climate change. We have seen that, for example, Europe, which is one of the biggest importer of gas, in the past few years have increased their consumption of coal, and they have decreased the consumption of gas. And that is because of the cheap gas in the cheap coal in the United States, because when the United States started to increase its consumption of gas, they had abundance of coal exporting with a cheap price, and Europe was the destination of those exports, and Europe welcomed this kind of trade because of the financial problems. So this is why we say that financial considerations prevailed over the climate change commitments of Europe, and because of that change in the policies, in the energy policies, we see that Europe has turned into one of the most polluting geographical regions, as opposed to the past, when US was more polluting than Europe. So the energy policies is very important to see in the future how the gas market would develop. So if I want to just summarize, I would say that some of these factors, you see shale gas revolution in the US, the fall in the oil prices and then gas prices, the policy of Japan, and then rising LNG, and as well as the energy policies in Europe and in other parts of the world, are all important factors that might change the dynamics of the gas markets. Now, having said that, I would like to briefly touch on the dynamics of the gas market itself and the energy markets. But let's start with a little bit of forecasting on the macroeconomics of the world. I don't want to touch very in detail on this. Just I would like to say that although the impacts of the financial crisis is still being felt in the economies of many countries, but at the same time we see that of course next year is better than this year. There are some anticipation that the world economy would grow from now until 2040, which is our long-term forecasting from 2015 to 2040, would be 3.4%. This is the world, with of course more growth in non-OECD Asia, as we call it. I mean, as opposed to the past, which was always, it was OECD region that was driving the world economic growth, but this growth would be here, would be in the Middle East, and it would be in Africa. Having said that, let's on the global energy demand. You know, the energy demand in the past 35 years, I mean from 1990 to 2015, was increased by 50%. But in the future, we would see that because of the increase in the efficiency of the use of the energy, it would be something around 41%. So the demand would be slightly less than what it used to be before, but this means that it is hugely, the demand is increasing in absolute terms. It is increasing very much, and so this is why everybody is anxious about how to meet this huge demand. But the shift is here. The shift in long-term energy demand growth from OECD region to non-OECD regions. We see that here the non-OECD region means China, India, and Southeast Asia, which China and India altogether amount for 35% of the incremental increase in energy demand. When we talk about the different kind of fuels on energy, we see that gas is the, as you know here, oil growth would be 0.8%, less than 1%. The gas would be 2%, more than 2%, coal less than 1%, renewables 1.9%, and nuclear is 2%. So we would see that out of all fuels, we would see that gas is what we call it, is a rising star of the fuels. If we look at the world fuel mix, as a result of this increase in the gas, we would see that in 2040, the gas would be from 21% to 27%. So it's quite a huge kind of increase. Whereas we would see that the oil is here 31%, here it is 28%, so it is coming down. In coal also we would see such a kind of change, which is, but the only one which is increasing would be gas. So on the gas on different regions, I have here just, we see that different kind of regions is non-OECD Asia, 340% increase. Middle East, 90% increase. Latin America, 66% increase. North America, 46% increase. Europe, 32%, and Africa, 20% increase. As you see, so gas is going to be demanded by all regions of the world hugely. When we are talking about 60%, 40%, 30%, I mean 30% is a huge amount of gas that one should plan for it and should secure it. This is why we say that, especially in gas and energy, both of them, that what matters and what is the most important challenge is how to meet the demand of gas and energy, of course. So this is about the demand by regions. On the sectors, the most important driving forces of gas is the power sector. Power generation sector, as you see here, is the one which is constituting 57% of the incremental demand for gas. So the first would be, of course, this is also in energy. In gas, we would see that power sector is the first one, which is the largest one. Then industry and transportation, followed by these two. So no more transportation is driving the gas demand as it used to be in the past. The past, it was the transportation which was driving the demand for the gas. But now it is the power generation, because the power generation is now the number one sector for the energy itself. So as we see that 57% is for the power sector, and we have followed by transport and industry. And then what is very actually interesting to know is that the cooling and heating system and the domestic use would be zero. So this means that how much the world efficiency in construction and building is really increasing, as opposed to some countries which countries in the Middle East and some developing countries, which we see that still the efficiency is very low and the energy intensity is very high. We see that on overall, on average, the world use of gas in cooling and heating system would be coming down because of the efficiency that is now being applied to the building and construction things. So having said that, let me now turn into talking about the trade. What will happen about the trade? You know, when we talk about, as I said, when we talk about oil, it is one oil. But when we talk about gas, we have different kind of gas. First of all, we have domestic gas and international trade of gas. This is two different parts. This is one distinction. The second one, we have pipeline gas and LNG gas. So this is also another one that one should take it into consideration. Then the third one is the long-term contracts and the spot contracts, which is also quite distinct from the oil. So I would like just to let you know what will happen on each of these sectors. On the when we talk about the production of gas and gas production and the gas dynamics, we know that for a time being we are talking about something around more than 85% of the gas produced is so this is, let's say, this is about the resources. Let me go to this. When we are talking about gas, we have the domestic use and we have the international. So most of you see here, this is the domestic use and this is the international. About more than 85% of the gas produced is consumed domestically, and just something around 13% is traded internationally. In 35 years' time, we see that in 2040, this is going to change. This would be 60%, around 60%, and this would be around 38%. I mean, 62%, 38%, something like this. And when, for the incremental increase, this increase from 15% to 30%, which is something around 50% increase, the increase in LNG and pipeline would be almost equal. So 50% LNG and 50% pipeline. So this is one. The second thing is about, this means that international trade of gas is increasing. Number two, what is the status of LNG vis-a-vis pipeline? The international trade of gas is dominant by the pipeline trade, not by LNG. If we want to divide them, it is something around 71% now is pipeline and 28% is LNG. In the future, this around 30% would increase to 40%. So this means an increase in the LNG. And when LNG increases, this means that the flexibility in the market would increase as well, because you may be able to switch it very easily from one buyer to the other, another buyer from one exporter to the other. So if I want to switch to the now spot vis-a-vis long term, you know, the reason why I'm talking about spot and long term, of course in oil also we have long term and spot, but it's different from this. Why? Because unlike oil, which you have to develop it, produce it, and present it to the market, and then sell it, in the gas, you have to discover it, and once it is proven, then you would sell it, and then you would produce it and develop it. So development of the gas fields is almost done after being sold. So this is why always the gas contracts are long-term contracts. So the spot contracts is something new to the markets of gas. It always used to be on a long-term basis. One of our colleagues in the energy sector, he is a very good speaker on comparing oil and gas. Always when they want to, he wants to compare these two, he would say that oil contracts is like dating, but gas contract is like a marriage. So when you get into a gas deal, it is a long-term deal. It's not a short-term deal. So this is why in the future, as I would say that the spot market is increasing. Here we see that the spot market for the time being is now something around 13% of the gas trade, international trade. It would be something around 40%. So we see that this is increasing. So if I want to also maybe I would like to show this also to you to let you know that although we have something around 500 TCM of trillion cubic meter of gas resources, but actually just 40% of them has been developed and is considered to be proven reserves. I mean, we differentiate between resources and reserves. Reserves are those which are proven reserves, and for sure it's there. And it's just 40%. And there are lots of gas which is not been yet proven as the resources, as recoverable resources. So this means that we have to think about investment and development of new fields. So with this, let me summarize my first part, which is the main part of my presentation, that energy demand will grow, and demand for energy will be 40%, 41% higher in 2040 than today. Second, gas will be the fuel of choice. As we see, all figures indicate that gas is going to be demanded more. LNG and pipeline gas will grow, but LNG will grow faster and will have 40% of the market. And there will be a new dynamics on trade because we have more international trade than domestic trade. Pricing, because there might be, the pricing might be converging. On contracts, I mean, because of the LNG, you might have links to the hubs and to the spots, and the marketing strategies because there might be new exporters as well. So this is my first part. Let's now get to very briefly, I mean this part is very brief on Iran. I think that in Iran we should answer these questions. First, does Iran have enough gas to export? This is number one, because this is has already been subject of many articles. Many have proven that Iran does not have enough gas to export. Second, should Iran, if we have enough gas, should we export it at all or not? We have different books written by some distinguished economists in Iran that we should not export gas. What are the potential markets? What is the role of Iran in the market? Should Iran get involved in LNG market or not? What are the strategies? I'm not going to try to answer all these questions, but I'm going just to share with you some. I would leave it to Professor Pesaran to let you know. But these are the major questions that are occupying the minds in Iran. Some facts about Iran. First of all, Iran is the biggest gas in the world. I mean, in the past, you might have heard about Russia, but that was Soviet Union. That was not Russia. Now Russia has less gas than Iran. Of course, the margin is very little. I mean, they have 31.3 TCM of gas, whereas we have 33.8. Of course, this is the figure from BP. Iranian figure is 34 point something. It's more than this. And this amounts to 18% of the world proven reserves, which is something around 188. Iran gas production, this is, I will tell you the resources. This is the resource of BP. Iranian resources indicate more than this. But this is the from the gas, national gas company of Iran, which this year, I mean this Iranian calendar year, 1394, is Iran's production reached 600 million cubic meter a day. This means that Iran's production per year is now something around 219 BCM, which is quite a good figure. And but of course, the BP figure for 2000, and this is for 2015 for now, but in 2014 the BP figure was 178, if I'm not mistaken. 178 is the BP figure, which is of course as opposed to 2-3 years ago. During, I mean, in 2000, let's say 12, the highest production of Iran was 120 BCM, which was quite low. And this means that Iran is now the third largest gas producer. Iran shares with, as everybody knows, is sitting on the non-associated gas reserve of South Pars or North Dome, and currently committed phases of South Pars. I mean, it is announced that by 2017, South Pars would be producing to its full potential, which is something around 1 BCM, and this means that per day, this means 365 BCM per year, which is quite a high number. Then by developing this, from South Pars, this means that from 2015, the gas production of Iran would increase very much. And in addition to this, the fact is that Iran, of course, for the time being, is a net exporter to Turkey and Armenia. And even in the winter time, when Iran's demand is at its peak, there is a little bit of net export to Armenia. Although with Turkey there is less export, but it is a net exporter. So these are the facts about Iran's reserves, production, and the potential for export. Now, let's talk about how was the policies of Iran gas export before the sanctions. How was the plans? I just would like to touch on some of these plans. That, of course, as you know, that Iran has a contract now with Oman, has a contract of export of gas with Iraq, has a contract of gas with UAE. Of course, it's in dispute. There is a negotiation going on between Iran and, there is a contract which is not finalized between Iran and Pakistan. And there is now another plan of export of gas to India from the deep sea. The feasibility study and the technical studies are being jointly done by the gas company of Iran, and GAIL from India, on the how to whether it is technically feasible or not, and whether it is financially feasible or not. So actually, the existing contracts in Iran or those under negotiation are quite giving a huge number of exports, figures for exports to Pakistan, to India, to Oman, to UAE, and to Iraq. This is in addition to the promise of Iran to double the gas export to Turkey, which is also another destination, which is, of course, this is a promise. The two sides are from time to time exchanging some comments on that, whether that is going to take place or not. So with that, we see that already we have this pipeline trading in the region. In addition to this, there used to be 3 LNG plans in Iran, which was one of them was Persian LNG, the other one was Iran LNG, and the other one was Pars LNG. And all of them could be revived in the future. So the infrastructure, I'll just this is the potential of gas export, as we see here. For example, in 2023, the potential is 75 BCM. This is just export. These are the exports of Iran that might happen in the future. Now, in 2015, it is 11 BCM, but this could be increased to 51, 71, and as we see, it is a high potential here. I mean, there are lots of talks in the market. They say that, yes, if the sanctions are lifted, Iran would be able to start its export 4 or 5 years. But I would say that it would be immediately possible to start export and increasing this 11 to, of course, this is very promising. I mean, this is, the figure is coming from the National Gas Company of Iran, which I don't share this figure of 51, but I share the potential of Iran could be immediately reactivated to some 5 to 6 BCM next year. I would also go into this is the gas production cost, because actually the marginal cost of production in Iran is amazing. Of course, in Iran and Qatar, both of them, I should say. That as we see, this is in Oman, this is in Saudi Arabia, this is in Bahrain, and this is in Abu Dhabi. And this is almost $8 per million BTU. So this means that if the price of gas would fall from $8, this is why Oman could not really produce gas. This is why people would always ask themselves that why Oman is contracting with Iran for importing of gas, because of this. And this is the cost of production of Iran. Which is quite, it's not comparable to the others. It's very low, and this is why it is good for exporting to the other countries. These are the contracts. This is Iranian gas Armenia. This is Azerbaijan gas swap. Turkey, Turkmenistan. These are the operational contracts. This is the concluded contracts, UAE, Iraq, Switzerland, Pakistan. And this is the contracts under negotiation, India, Oman, Kuwait, UAE, and Iraq. And these are the 3 LNGs that this is 10.6. This is now being very much discussed to be revived right now. And of course, these 2 are the ones which should be redefined or redesigned for the future. So altogether, something around 45 BCM, which is 45 million ton, which is more than 60 BCM, which is quite a large amount of. And trading with neighbors, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, Armenia. Let me now go to the conclusion. The conclusion is this, that first of all, Iran is is a center of energy markets, I should say, because actually, as I have already indicated in my articles and in my speeches before, Iran is situated in the center of the north-south axis, which is, I call it producer axis, east-west axis, which is consumer axis. So it is best situated for becoming a center for trade, even absorbing the extra oil and gas from the other countries and exporting it to the other places, of course, if it takes appropriate measures and strategies. We have proper infrastructure. I mean, in the other slide here, I indicated about the infrastructure. 36,000 kilometers of high-pressure transmission gas pipeline. It's a huge network of gas pipeline which could easily connect all countries of the region to Iran. We have here the new phases of South Pars could allow extra export volume. It's a reliable source, lower cost, old in business, different seasonal demand, and pipeline export as well as LNG. This is also very important because Iran can really start development of some of the phases of South Pars for the LNG to be present in all markets, and could potential for expanding gas production and export in comparison with other regional producers. I guess that in our region, in our neighbors in the Persian Gulf, all gas countries except Iran and Qatar, they are all gas deficit countries and they need of gas. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, UAE, and Oman in the future. And the only two countries which are gas surplus countries are Iran and Qatar, and they can. And given I should diplomatically say that given the conditions prevailing over the contracts between Qatar and the other neighboring Arab countries of the Persian Gulf, Iran has a good chance to export gas to these countries. Although it might seem inconceivable right now, but I think that it's conceivable in the future. So in my conclusion now, I hope that I'm not exceeding that limit of time. The conclusion is very simple. First, gas is a rising fuel. Second, gas market dynamics are changing and it is posing some challenges. Then the challenge is how to meet the rising demand. And the last, but the most important thing is Iran is going to be a game changer in the energy and especially in gas. It has its potential to do so. It is going to impact the market for the good because, as I said, the most important challenge in the energy market and in the gas market is how to meet the rising demand of gas and how to secure the security of supply of gas. And Iran could really play a major role in securing the supply of gas to all gas countries, the gas deficit countries that may need them for fueling their development. So thank you for your attention.